I press submit. We go to the second page, whatever current position is this one, right? Of course, if we choose a date that's in the future, so it's after the end date, we shouldn't be able to submit. We can change that. So let's go ahead and do just that, and I can press submit. How's it going, folks? In this video, we're going to take a look at how I build a multi-part form that also has fields arrays and integrates some of the reusable components, specifically the date picker that we built in the previous video. I hope this is going to be interesting and useful for you. This has been quite a challenge for me to record, so bear with me as I debug some of the things in this video, and do share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. All right, folks, let's get started. I'm going to create a new Next.js app, and we're going to place everything inside it. Let's call it MultiPart Forms video. Yes, TypeScript. Yes, ESLint. I'm actually going to use my ESLint setup that I prefer to use on most of my projects. Tailwind CSS. Yeah. Keep everything in SRC. Yeah. We're not going to use the app folder, not in this video, maybe in the next one. Leave a comment if you're interested in that. And yeah, import alias. Why not? I really like the new, I think, Next.js 13 install process. This wizard where I just opt in for stuff is really nice. Right, let's get into our multi-part form video and open a VS Code instance. Okay, and I'll use the terminal from now in here. Let's just run it first, npm run dev, see what we get. All right, everything seems to be in order. We have Tailwind, nice. This is like the second time I'm seeing Tailwind automatically configured with Next.js. The first time was when I actually built the form before the video. So let's see what we need to install to get started. I'm gonna install React Hook Form, Zod, because we're probably gonna use it for validation. Then it's gonna be Hook Form, I think, Hook Forms, Hook Form / resolvers. I wonder if it's like this. Hook Form resolvers. Did I remember that correctly? Oh, nice. Okay. And yeah, for now, I think that's pretty much it. Let's see if we can get maybe the form up and running, like just to see the API in action. So I'll use form here, handle, submit, and register. I'm just gonna log those and make sure that we have some form ready to run. So here, do we have the form? Yeah, we have the packages, so we're ready. Now, what I'm gonna do, since I mentioned before that we're gonna try to build stuff with ChatGPT, is I'm gonna try to instruct ChatGPT to build parts of the experience, so we see what AI can do now, and we can probably incorporate it in our workflows moving forward. Now I already have the end result that I want to build right here. So I will try to ask ChatGPT to build this form for me by just providing the field types and maybe some additional information about the structure, like the white background and maybe rounded corners at the bottom and sharp edges or sharp corners at the top or something like that. So let's see how that goes. I'm gonna start a new chat window and I'll say, hey, can you build a Tailwind form using for usage in a React component, so class names, not classes, for CSS classes, that has the following fields. And yeah, I'll just leave the type as is. And let's see. So we have full name, email address, address line 1, address line 2, country, and zip code. So full name, email address. Oh, I made a mistake. Interesting. It also added a use state and class names. So let me kindly ask it to give me just the HTML and don't use any React code apart from class name. Yeah, okay, so we are getting a form with the full name and an address and a submit button. Let's also add address line 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm not really that comfortable with Tailwind. It would probably have taken me a lot of time to properly write this whole utility class chain or whatever it's called, because I don't use Tailwind that much. But we're gonna take a look and see how this renders by just copy pasting the code really quick. I just need to make sure that hey, you forgot to use class name, so let's kindly ask it to use class name. Okay, so not only did it use class name, it also transformed labels for attributes in HTML4. So we kind of figured out it's for React. And what else do we have here? We also have country and zip code. So let's see. Add a country field, which is a dropdown with the most popular countries in terms of developer, I don't know, conferences. Let's see what it picks. And also what was the last one? A zip code, zip or postal code field. And these two should be on the same line. And I think we're going to get the whole form. Unless it crashes, in which case we have to refresh the page, which is not really that bad if you ask me. All right. Now last time, oh, and I need to say continue because it's probably overflowing. Okay. So it chose United States, Canada, UK, Australia, Germany, Japan, China, India, Brazil, and France. So apparently those are the most popular destinations for conferences according to ChatGPT. So yeah, I think I can work with this. Let's see what we get. I'm gonna copy over everything. So make a mental note. We're closing the zip postal code, and then we'll have to copy over what's left. Cool. So I'll get rid of everything that's in this main page and see what we get. So I paste a lot. Oh, it forgot again to use class names. That's a bummer. Let's ask it again. Please use class names and don't explain anything. Okay. Stop generating. I meant class name. Huh. So now we have the whole form in one response. We can easily copy paste it. Okay, I pasted the whole thing. It seems to be valid. And let's see what we get. Okay, nice. So we do get the beginning of the form. Let's also ask it to add some background. Hey, can you add some background color like a light gray for the form, and also a little bit of padding around the field? Only respond with the updated form or main container, not the contents of the form. Let's see what we get. Yeah, it seems to be misbehaving. So I only asked for the updated container, but yeah. And I think I can use this class name on the form. I don't think I need another div. And here we go. Ah, I kind of like the first uh, response that I got. So I also built this one with ChatGPT, but it seems this time it was a little bit less creative than before. Anyway, let's ask it to add some color to the button, and I think we're done. Add some color, please, to the button, and only show me the button code. Let's try this class name and see what we get. We're getting there. I think this is fine for now. Uh, the color is white in the input, so let's fix that. Change the color of the inputs to contain black text, not white. Let's see what we get. And I'll just look over. Oh, so it's text gray 900. So that's the color. I'll go ahead and change all the input, so it's not just form input, it's also text gray, like so. All right, cool. Okay, we're getting somewhere. And this is like really, I just need to make the inputs a little bit prettier. So I'll ask it to how do you make the inputs taller a bit and with a little bit of style. Okay, so it gives me a little bit more here. So I'll copy over that entire thing. And let's see now what we get. Now that's better. Okay. I'll ask it to style the country tag, the country select. What about the country select? It looks different and uglier than the rest of the inputs. And I think we're done with this. Where is the country code? There we go, country, and we get this nice set of utility classes for it. It's easy to find, form select, boom. How about now? We're getting there. I think this is fine. Hopefully by now you see that we're actually building it a lot easier this way. And if you don't know Tailwind, like I'm no expert with Tailwind. This is a far more relaxed experience, if you ask me. So let me know in the comments below what you think about working like this to build the HTML and CSS structure of forms or other simple React components. Oh, we also have an error here. Let's see. Oh, default value or value prop select instead, blah, blah. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. All right, so we have this part of the form. Let's build the second one. So let's take a look at how that one looks. So I think as long as I provide an email, I should be able to jump to this one. All right, so here we will have the multi-field, the field array functionality from React form. We'll have a role, company, and start and end date and a checkbox. So yeah, let's ask it, let's build another form that has a job position information containing the following fields. So we have role name, company, and a checkbox for currently working here. I think it's gonna remember my preferences. Yeah, like the padding, the form class names, and so on. Now, obviously, I wouldn't just copy paste this and then call it a day. I would probably extract the input into a component or modify my component input to use Tailwind if that's what I want to do. But yeah, folks, I don't know. This is a lot easier, at least for me, than writing the whole thing from scratch. So I'll just paste the second form right here and make sure that we add the form class name, the padding on the form tag, because apparently ChatGPT wants to add a div, an additional div, and I don't want that. And let's see what we get. Yeah, I'm satisfied with the result. I think we can work with this, even though you have to admit it was a lot more creative the first time. Yeah, I'll just build on top of what we have here. Oh, and actually, we should have another button here near the submit. Add another position. So I'll also create that, and I think we're done. Add another button near the submit one called add another position. And I'll just copy over the structure. Hopefully there's going to be a container with some flags configuration, and yeah, so flags justify between blah blah blah. I'll copy this and replace my footer area of the second form. Add another position. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I don't want to spend any more time configuring this, so I'll just copy over this whole CSS utility class string and add it for the add another position button. So I'll do something like that. Let's see if it worked. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Now with that out of the way, it is time to actually talk about how we're gonna tackle this. So we want users to first fill in the first form, the first part of the multi-part form, and instead of having the submit button, they're probably going to have a next or go to the next phase of the submission process, and then they will be able to use the second area, the second form, the second page of the form, however you want to call it. And when they're done there, only after we would say, okay, thank you, there's nothing else we need from you. Multi-part forms are just multiple forms stitched together by another layer, architectural layer, that is responsible for orchestrating and deciding what should be visible on the screen. So I can literally have a Boolean flag that decides if it renders this or that. And the first form is a React hook form component that uses useForm, handles submit, and so on. Independent of the second one, it has its own validation and so on and so forth. Now, I did try to ask ChatGPT to do this, and it suggested some really weird hacks. I'm not sure if I can find that validation hack that it tried to use. Why would we try to hack away and build some sort of Frankenstein-ish monster if we can just use the things that we already know? So if you haven't seen the previous long form video that I recorded, that's worth watching. We're gonna use the same separation of concerns that we have in that form, but to build a chain of multiple forms together. So let's go ahead and actually get started building it. So the main idea here is gonna be like, so we have the Next.js page. So basically this one, that's gonna be responsible for fetching data. So I'll be fetching and persisting data here. Then we will have a wrapper or container or something like that. You probably saw how I prefer to split the code between a presentational layer and then some business logic layer before. That's going to be our form business logic that decides, oh, I have this data, I should probably show the form page number 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And then each individual form will be its own self-contained, self-validating, ready-to-use experience. That component, for example, form 1 could be used in other situations without being part of a multi-part form. All right, so that's where I'm trying to get to. And before I get started, I am going to copy over a fake persistence layer here. I'm going to make an API folder. And inside that API folder, I'll just paste over a bunch of stuff. Just give me a moment. I will create a form data endpoint. So it's going to be form data.ts. And inside here, I will do something very, very hacky for this tutorial. I'm gonna keep everything that we send to the server in a global variable on the server because I don't want to get bothered with setting up a persistence layer or something more fancy. I will address the lint error in a moment. And basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, if you want to get the data, I'll send over all the data. And if you want to save the data, I will save each part of the object that you send over. So if you say, hey, I want to save form part 1, I'll say, okay, I will just place form part 1 in this global object. So that's our persistence layer. That's everything that we're gonna use for persistence. And this will allow us to get the data from the server, and hopefully it's gonna be enough to decide if we should show form page 1 or show form page 2, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna copy over my ESLint setup as well. So we have something that I'm super comfortable with. So if you want this, let me know. I'll probably share it in a GitHub thing or something. So basically with that setup, when I press save, it saves the data, the code in a way that I'm most comfortable with. Let's go ahead and actually first split the main page into two form components. So I will create a form component that's the first form. It's going to be const first form because I have really no creativity today, it seems. So this is like the let's call it basic details form. Basic job application, because this is a job application form, job application basic details form, like so. All right, why are you complaining? You're not complaining. Okay, and this is going to be the second one. This is going to be job application past experience form. Yeah, let's do that. Boom. Okay. And let me replace the whole, oh no, never mind, we're here, let's replace that. And yeah, but folks, I'm using the GitHub Copilot as well, so notice how it auto-completed and figured out that I want to use the previous component, the component from here. So basically it's AI all over. I think we should probably learn how to be experts using AI, because otherwise we might become obsolete without knowing it. So it's probably better to know when you're becoming obsolete. So yeah, let me actually, I'm not going to ask you to leave a comment about that because it's probably going to derail the whole comment section if we start talking about AI and our future as developers as time goes by. Anyway, let's get back to it. Cool. It's still running, still behaving the same, but now we can work with the two forms separately. Let's start using hook form on the first one. So I'm going to have a hook form here, use form. Let's see what AI suggests. Oh, default values, no thanks, not now. So I'll just use a handle submit and a register for now. Handle submit will be on form submit here. So we'll do handle submit, and inside it for now, let's just do a console log. Console log params or values like so. Okay, and apart from that, let's start registering some fields. So I'll register full name. No, it's gonna be like that, full name. All right. Interesting error saying, hey, you're duplicating the name, so register will place its own name. So let's do that. I think I can remove the required input validation because we're gonna have our own validation. Let's see how it behaves for email. Register email, nice, okay. So yeah, AI is quite helpful. Register address line 1, that's correct. Notice how it figured out that I'm using camel case, and previously it suggested the kebab case, or how is that called? Um, it's gonna be address line 2, country, boom, boom, boom. Where do we register here? Register, country, yes, and zip code. Register zip code. I'm gonna say zip code, not zip. Cool, cool. All right. This means if I press submit now, I should see an empty values array here. So let me add another part of console log there and press submit. Oh, email address is required. Okay. Okay, so our form is ready to work with the infrastructure, the architecture that we're building. Now we can upgrade, we can lift state up, as some people say. We can push those values outside of our initial, our first form. We're gonna have a handle first job application details form handle. Job application details form submit. Yes, thank you, Autocom. GitHub Copilot. Yes, thank you again. That's what I wanted. I don't know the values yet, so I'll leave it like that. And let's see. On submit ready. Let's do that. And now our first form needs props, which are going to be defined like so. Interface, this props on submit ready is, yes, that's right. Good job again. Our AI friend seems to be on the right track. And all I need to do is hook this up here. So it's going to be props on submit ready. We're ready to send data to the parent layer for the first form. Let's quickly do that for the second one. So handle submit. Actually, I'm gonna copy over the interface and maybe a couple of registers. So like so. This is gonna be the second form props. It's gonna have a props, and it's gonna be this one, and on submit again it's gonna be like so, props on submit ready. Okay, that's weird. Okay, on submit ready, and let's register maybe, actually we won't register anything because this is gonna be repeated. So I'll just add one field which we're gonna play with. Register full name again, like no, not full name, like a past experience, let's say, just to see that the form works, because all the role information that goes inside here is going to be repeated. So we'll tackle that in a later section of this video. So let's hook up another on submit ready for the second part of the form. Duplicate this like so. This is going to be form submit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here we go. So now I should be able to type in something in the first input, and I am typing it just has a white background for some reason. And if I press submit, oh, the fields are required. Let's make everything not required. So every time I see required, I'm gonna say nope, thank you. Right, submit. So we can submit the first one, we can submit the second one. So both forms are submittable. So let's see how we can slowly build up to the multi-part form. I can have a boolean here, false, should show second part of the form. Said should show form to whatever. And let's add new state in React. Nothing is stopping me from saying, hey, should I show the second part? Like, let's negate that. So should I show the first one or the second one? And in the first one, I can say, hey, yeah, we're good. We can switch to the second one. So that's the basic of submission. We're on the first part of the form. We're on the first form. If it is valid, if it can be submitted on a top layer, we can say, yeah, okay, we'll handle that data, and then we're gonna get to the advance to the next form. Now that can be a name of the next frame form. It can be a number. It can be whatever you want. You can have business logic that decides which is the current part of the form or page of the form of the multi-part form experience. But that's the basics of it. Everything that I'm gonna build in like the next 30 minutes or so is gonna be validation and data persistence and then reinitialization of the data and so on. Stuff that you've seen in the previous video, hopefully if you watched it. All right, so let's see what we're gonna do now. Let's actually split the whole page into two form components, add validation, and see if we can get to the point where we actually are ready to submit the first form. All right. So I will make another folder here, maybe called components. Although I prefer to have some folders that talk about a main feature, not a drawer of components. So components is not going to be a drawer where I have forms and buttons and tabs and headers. And no, I'm going to have the job application. Actually, name it feature like so, because that way folks kind of get the point. You co-locate a lot of code that's related to a specific feature in one area, so it's a lot easier to work. We don't have to jump into multiple folders, or maybe not have to jump into multiple files either. So yeah, that's that. And this is going to be, the first one is going to be the job application details form.tsx, and I'll copy over everything from here like so. Boom, save, export, import everything that we need. And now I can go ahead and get rid of, no, I already did, so I can import this from its own file. I'm gonna do the same for the second one, which is called job application past experience form. Job application past experience form.tsx, export everything, import form, yes, and import it here as well. Right, so it should still run, it should still be fine. Yeah, so we are able to submit. We're going to the next form. Now the grindy part starts, and actually let's see if ChatGPT can help us with this as well. Let's see if Chat can build a Zod schema for our first form. Can you build a Zod schema for the first form? I just wanted, let's see. I haven't tried this before, but oh, okay. That's not bad. It's not bad at all. Non-empty. I wonder if non-empty is a thing or not. So I'll just copy over everything and see what we get. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised. I did not know non-empty existed. I was always using the min and max and so on. I guess in a real application, you really care about names being at least a few characters. Yeah, I think this is it. This is good. Full name, email address, address line 1 and 2, country, and this is going to be zip code because that's how we defined it. And this is actually the wrong file. So let me take that out of the past experience and paste it in the basic details here. So like so, there, and you go down and your style like so. All right, we also need hook resolvers. So I know this is gonna be the Zod resolver from hook form resolvers. It's not used, right? That's the error. So we're just gonna go resolver, Zod resolver schema. And this needs to be from Zod, like so. Bam, all right. Let's also get form state errors here and take a look at the errors that we get, because I think now when using the resolver like so and the schema, we won't be able to submit the form anymore. So let's see if I'm right. I submit and we get errors. Nice, really, really nice. Okay, let's add the errors really quick. So I'm gonna shut up and do this off camera and get back to you when I'm done with it. So it's actually pretty easy. With the AI, I just press enter, open a code bracket, and it figures out that if the error address line 1 exists, I want to show red italic text and to get the message. So pretty good, pretty good. Can't complain. This really makes my life a lot easier. Hopefully it's gonna make your life easier as well if you decide to adopt AI into your workflow. Let's see if it also works, because it might not. No, it works. Yeah, it's fine. So this would have taken at least 15 minutes, maybe 10, I don't know, but it took like 3. So yeah, exciting times, right? Exciting times to be alive. Email address apparently doesn't have an error. I wonder why. So let's take a look. Because it's email address, not email, right? Did I register email or email address? I'm gonna go with email, not email address. And let's see. Submit now. Great, awesome. And if I type in John here and I press submit, it also focuses the email address, so we're on the right track. Now, you've seen hopefully how to do Zod schema validations in previous videos or somewhere else. In the interest of time and being able to switch between multiple form pages, I'll just require maybe validation for the full name. I'll just leave the full name. So this is not about validation. We talked about it previously. I'm just making sure that the whole system works. So with the full name, I should be, as long as I provide the full name, so let's say my name, I should be able to jump to the next form. Great, awesome. That's what I wanted. All right. Yeah, I think we can first persist the data, talk about the multi-part form switching system, and then look at field arrays and build the second form. So we're ready to submit the first form. I will remove this switch to the second form for now and focus on what happens when we handle the submission. So what do I want? When I successfully submit, so first I have the validation. If I pass the validation, I provide a valid form, I should be able to save this data. And then if I refresh the page, I would like to load that data back in. So let's do that first, and then we'll see how we can instruct our multi-part form system to jump to the second page immediately, to the second part of the form. So step number one, and also quick note, why are we seeing this twice? If we should probably investigate why we're getting two renders for our component or for component. How do we save this data? We know that we have an API that will expect a request body, so we need to stringify the content, send it to the server, and then whatever key is the first key, or like the main key of that object, is going to be stored in this fake persistence layer. So if I save form one with key form one, it will save it on the form one key, and if I save the second form or the second part of the form as form two, is going to save it near the form one. So it's going to be form one, form two, and so on. So that's the whole idea behind it, but it doesn't mean you have to do this. So you could, depending on your use case, have to store some data in local storage or in session storage or something like that. So it really doesn't matter where the persistence layer is, as long as it is asynchronous and you call it from here. As long as you have those two constraints met, it should work the same. So I'm going to transform this into a asynchronous method so I can await an API call. I am not going to use any library whatsoever. I will just, yeah, let's see what the AI tries to autocomplete here. I'll just use a fetch job application. Was it job application? No, for data, but let's do job application, because that sounds a lot better. If you ask me, yeah, that makes more sense. Form data is too generic. We know that it is an API that handles form applications. Yes, we want to create something. Oh my god, this is unbelievable. My only thing that I will change is going to be form one here. So form one is values. So we're going to await this fetch. And yeah, for now, I think that's fine. Let's also do the same thing here. Okay, yes. Method is post. Yes, we want to stringify from values to nice. Okay, yes. And this needs to be async as well. I happen to know that Next.js wants us to send some headers and some content types. So not only do we need to stringify and have a post method, we also need to say, hey, Next.js, we're working with JSON here. So make sure you are aware of that. And let's get rid of that. All right, let me show you something else that I like to do. I like sometimes to start a debugger with the debug terminal, like so, npm run dev. And I'm gonna add a debugger here so we see what's going on. Refresh the page, my name, submit, not found, job application. Oh, API job application. What's wrong? What do you mean not found? Oh, of course, it needs to be inside pages API. So let's do that. Let's move it here, remove that. Compiler refreshed, that's fine. Submit. And there we go. We are actually debugging the server function, and we see that we get the JSON parsed data already. We are not getting the data, we are posting, we are getting what? We are getting the form one key, and we are spreading the global object And now it will contain form 1. So basically, when we save the second page, we're going to save the second form and so on and so forth. And we say message success. No, let's actually send the whole form data. Success and form data. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I just read my mind. Did you see that, folks? We're going to send the whole form data back. So we have the option in the UI to capture the response. And I'm gonna wait again for the JSON, right? And console log what we get. Console log, it's response. And let's see what we get. Submit again. I should remove that debugger. Go back, response, message success, form data, full name. So why is this important? Why do I think this is important? I think you should look at the multi-part form system if you're integrating with a backend, the same way you would handle a cart in an e-commerce store. Usually when you add a product to the cart, you don't just get a success response back. You get the success response with the entire cart updated from the backend, because you don't know what business logic might happen inside the server. Maybe something gets out of stock, maybe some offer or coupon that you applied has expired or something like that. Maybe an item simply is no longer available, and by getting the entire cart back, you increase the chances of having consistency in your UI with the server. So I'll try to replicate that system here. Every time we save something, a part of the form, kind of like adding an item to a cart, we're going to get back the whole multi-part form from the server. And we're going to reinitialize and say, okay, based on the data that the server got back to us, where should we take the user? So the next part would be to keep this data in a state somewhere. So it's no longer going to be a Boolean. We're going to have the whole form data here, set form data, use state, and by default it's going to be empty. Actually, let's just do null. So it can be a record of string and unknown for now. And we will call set form data, and it's going to be response dot form data. We know it's form data. Yes, we should probably do something about the validation from the API and so on and so forth, but we actually own the API, so maybe some super hard validation here or typecasting is not necessary. All right, let me JSON stringify the data like so, and we see what the next step is. So the form data is null initially. Basically, every time I'm gonna change any part of the code, the hot reload will basically clear the persistence layer that we have. I'm gonna press submit. I gotta get rid of that debugger, so let me do that for now. And this is what we see. So we get back from the persistence layer. Yeah, form 1 accepted. This is the status. It doesn't have to be just the fields. Maybe it has to be, maybe it can have some sort of important status, like you have to jump back to form 1 because something happened or some session expired or blah blah blah. So you can be flexible with how you implement your responses, as long as you get back the whole thing. All right, so let's try that again. Yes, submit. This is the data. Now, what do we do with that data? Well, we implement a similar switch, but now based on our data. We can say something like, hey, is form data form 1 present? If it's not present, we're going to show form 2. So if there's no form data, or like if there is form data and there is no form 1, that's the expression. I think we should show the first one, otherwise the second one. And I hope that you can see how this doesn't have to be a really long condition check. It can be something like a switch, or a small algorithm that say, hey, give me the last form key, or maybe the response from the server contains another key saying the last, or the form that you need to focus on is X. So that is a little bit of data algorithm that you are super free to do and implement however you want. The main idea is somewhere in your application layer, you decide which part of the form to show, which page of the form part you want to show. Let's see if it works. Okay, so I have the wrong condition here. So if form data exists and it doesn't exist, yeah, okay, so if there's no form data, or there is no form data 1, we will show the first page, yeah, like so. I submit, I have form 1, I go to the second part. I think I'm getting this wrong. Hopefully by the end of the video I'll get it right, so bear with me. Now what we could do, and actually this is important if you will, is when we refresh the page, and let's actually try this again. So yeah, submit, refresh. When we refresh the page, I think we should get the data that we just submitted in our persistent layer. We shouldn't start from scratch again. So let's do that. And this is the part that might change with server components. I'm pretty sure this is the first thing to be a little bit different if you're using the app folder or server components. But basically on mount, when our homepage runs on the client the first time, so our friend, if we can call it that, use effect with empty dependency array will come to the rescue and allow us to fetch the data and set it on our state. Wow. Okay. So yes, I agree. Good job, AI again. So I'm not a fan of the async, to be honest, because you're supposed to try catch. So maybe I would say it's okay if we also have a try catch and at least we log the error. But yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have written the async because I found it a little bit too boilerplately. But if the AI can write it for me, I don't mind. It's actually easier to read with 208 like this. So yeah, we're getting all the data. We're setting the form data like so. So let me refresh. And if I refresh, the data is null for now. Oh, we actually get an error. What did we get back? Let's see. Job application, no properties. Of course, because we just, restarted our server. All right, let's save again. We have for 1. Let's refresh. Oh no, it's not working. Why? We are getting full name. So we are getting the first one. What's going on? What's going on with the stringify? Let me log the form that. Oh, folks, yes. See, so AI, no, actually the AI did properly check and get the form data. So let me log, or maybe add the debugger here. Oh, folks, my bad. I think we're not sending the right information when we get the data. So if we were to add it, if we got to the point where we added a debugger here in the function, we'd have seen that we also need to respond when we get data with .form data. And I think we should be fine now. So empty, submit, yes, refresh, and there you have it. So we briefly have the null, and then we have the right information. Of course, Now I can check if my form data is null, and if it is null, I'm not gonna render anything. So uh, let's get rid of that. And for now, if there's no data, not gonna return anything. We're gonna return null. This will probably change with server components. So take a note of that. If you know about the app folder, if you know about server components, you probably know that this kind of pattern, especially for the initial data fetching, is kind of going to go away, and it's going to be a lot more smooth moving forward. And now I can remove that check and actually reverse this so it's a little bit easier to read. So if we have form 1, we show form 2, otherwise we show form 1. And initially we don't show anything if there's no form data. Please note that when there is no data but we get the response from server, we're going to get an empty object which is not null, so we will be able to pass this if statement. So I refresh the page, I see the full name, blah, blah, blah. My name is Vlad, submit. I'm on the second one. I refresh the page and magically I am on the second one. Of course, there's a little bit of a delay that can be mitigated with the loading state, or like I said, with server components. So you have the data available immediately. Depending on my mood, we might actually do a server component and see how it goes at the end of the video. But yeah, we'll see. All right, and now I can press submit and start that experience, the the final submission, uh, like so. Cool, cool. Now I would like to have a way to go back to the initial page, or like a previous part of the multi-form experience. So I think we should tackle that, and also tackle setting initial data for previous parts of the multi-form experience, multi-part form experience. Basically, that means apart from this check, we will have to send the form data as initial values or something like that. So I imagine we have initial values equals to form data 1. And for now, I will revert this so we see how it works in action. So we'll see both forms, at least for now, for a bit. So let me place both of them like that. We have them side by side. And now my task is, when I press submit and I refresh, I should still see my name in the full name field. So that's how I make sure that I implement the ability of data to come from the server and to pre-fill the form. And then we'll see how we can implement maybe a tab navigation that allows us to switch from one tab to the other. So you could theoretically refresh the page on the second part of the form with the roles and so on, and you could press the first tab and see your full details fetched already from the server. So that's my aim for this next section. So we're gonna implement another property, which is initial values, and we don't know the type. So we should probably work on that first. If you recall, or if you know, we have, again, wow, the AI is super useful. We have zinfer, which will give us a type based on our schema definition. So our schema has a full name and it looks like this. It's quite ugly, like it's not pretty. And if we use zinfer on the type of that schema, we get something a lot prettier. Like, hey, this is the whole object coming from our form. I'll use that instead of unknown now, because I know when I submit, I will have these values. Initial values will be the form values, and also React form needs a little bit of help with types here. So we need to actually tell it, hey, yeah, we know the type. This is gonna be this. And now we see that there's no email because, yeah, we haven't allowed the rest of the fields, and address line 1 and address line 2 and so on. So what I'll do, I'll copy over everything again and uncomment it, and I'll just allow strings like so. So I don't have any validation as long as they're strings and they're optional. I'll make everything a string and optional. All right, so now we should have no more errors. Of course, here we have a complaint that initial values cannot be unknown, form is unknown, blah, blah. We could import the infer type for our initial form, the first page. So here we could have the type that we just inferred. So this one, let me rename that to job application details form values. It's gonna be like that, and I'll export it. So we could, if we wanted to, import this, but I don't see a value at least now to do that, so I'll just leave it here. But we still need to do something about the unknown initial value. So form 1 is an unknown, initial values is supposed to be a specific type. We've handled this in the previous video. We've done some, I think, some casting or something like that. So I'll just do, hey, you know, I really know that this is going to be the right stuff. Let's keep the TypeScript error for now. Again, you're supposed to do some validation. Maybe, you know, when you actually set the set form data, you make sure that you have that structure that you really need. If you're not the owner of the API, if I'm also the owner of the API, I don't see the point of using some sort of algorithm that checks if I have valid data, because I own the backend and I can enforce that in the backend, not here on the client. Now, all I need to do after that, again, really nice job from the AI. I just need to have the default values. Why the default values? Because the form is not visible before we actually get the data. So it's fine like this. We don't need to do anything extra for it. But since I have optional values, maybe I send over an empty object like so. And let's see if it works. So I refresh the page, I set my name, I submit. No errors. I refresh the page and voila, I actually have my name available there. Right, so we're getting closer to the point where we actually tie these two together with data being fetched from the server, and we're going to be left with field arrays really soon. So I'm going to clear this console log out from both fields if I have to, both forms. It's fine. We have this initial values for form 1. We can have the same thing for form 2. We're going to get to that in a moment. Don't need that console log either. Now let's see what else can I clear out. That console log here, this one, don't care about the response. We no longer have that state. All right. So how can we decide which of those forms to show now that we have the data coming from our persistence layer, but also allow it to switch when the user clicks some sort of tab navigation? We will have another component that manages just that. It gets the data from the server, it decides an initial value maybe for which form to show, and then handles the internal state when we click on each of the tabs to show one form or the other. So I'll do another one called MultiPart job application form wrapper this time, because it's going to wrap multiple components. And what do I think it should have? Well, first of all, it's going to return something. So we have that. It's also going to have an internal state for the current part or page. Now, for simplicity's sake, I think I will just use a number, but this can be something more elaborate. I'll have the ability to set this part after the initial page load. This is probably not going to be one all the time, so I expect the props from this component to dictate the initial value of our state. Yes, we will have a submit ready, but it's going to be on submit on form 1 or like something like that, submit ready, and then we'll have another one for form 2, like so. And here, if actually no, we will have a div, we will have some sort of container that will have the tab navigation. So we'll have here a tab navigation, and then we will have a ternary operator saying, hey, is part 1 here? And if it is, okay, so yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. I also wanted the initial values, but yeah, we can work with that. So great. So we have the first one. Actually, yeah, this is part 1, and then we're gonna have another one with part 2. Wow, I'm surprised by how intuitive this code is, and this must be quite easy to understand, since even the Copilot, the GitHub Copilot, can figure it out so easily. Yes, it's not gonna be the basic one. It's gonna be the second part, the application experience one. So import this from that, and this is gonna be second, like so. Cool. Now let's also get the form values. Let's get the entire form values thing. So it's gonna be form values, form 1 and form 2. We actually know the values from the first form, so I'll copy over the type of those values. So for now, we know form values 1 is this one. And now we can pass over the initial values to our first form values, no, props, form values, form 1, yes. And it's probably gonna be the same for the second one. Right, let's see how this works. I think this should replace both forms here. So we're gonna have this main wrapper, which will have on form submit 1 the first one, on submit 2 the second one. Form values is gonna be this. Form data, form values. Interesting. Okay, as form 1, like so, form 2 unknown. So we're still not getting rid of this cast, we just refactored it a little bit. Let's see what happens now. So if I refresh the page, I press save, submit, I'm no longer switching to the next page, but the application still works. And if I refresh the page, the initialization with the values is still solid. So we haven't broken anything. It's still working fine. We're now ready to add a tabs navigation. So let's see if Copilot this time can figure it out. It seems Copilot also knows how to write Tailwind. So yeah, we have basic details, and then we have past experience. Yeah, I'll take it, sure. It's not that pretty, but it's a starting point. So maybe we mix it up a little bit. Maybe we take this code and let's see if chat can help us out. Whoops, seems like we lost our connection there with chat. Hey, I have this piece of React code. Here's the piece of React. Can you make the tab navigation a little bit prettier? Let's see what we get. Oh wow, okay, so we have it seems some sort of conditional there and so on. For this, I think we can use class names, the utility package or something else, because otherwise this code, even though it might look good, actually let me just copy it over while I'm talking. Even though this code might look good or better than what we had before, I don't find it particularly manageable. I think it's not the best uh, code structure, not the best, not the most maintainable. Let's call it that. So this is what I got last time from chat, and now I'm getting this one. I kind of like this tab navigation a little bit more than the previous one. So yeah, this is definitely an improvement. So let's see if we can ask it to use the class name. Can you use the class names package for the conditional classes here? Can it get us there? Yes, it can. Can you extract this into a small component that gets the part number as well? We have a tab navigation, we have a part on parts change. Yes, that is a little bit better. And this is how we use it. I'm using TypeScript body. So please let's let's behave. Let's use TypeScript. All right, so we have this whole thing. I'll place it here. Job application tabs.tsx, all that, all good. Let's install npm install class names because we're going to use it. We don't need React like so. Tab navigation should be exported. This is going to be tab navigation props. Export. I want functions, not like that. Okay. Yeah, this is not the most reusable component, and it is perfectly fine because it lives in this feature, if you will. So we have this job application feature, and our task is to build this. So I imagine if you were working at a company, you have to build this, and you didn't have a design system or a tab navigation already in place, maybe it wouldn't have been a good idea to start creating a reusable tab navigation as a tangent to the main task that you're working on. So I'm okay with this, even though it could definitely be improved and made more usable. But for our purposes, this is just fine. So let's see if I can hook it up. If I can hook this tab navigation up with what we have. Tabs, no, not tabs. So this time autocomplete is not working fine. So Copilot is a little bit confused. Set part like this, I would prefer to have it be called like this. So I don't think it's a good idea to send a set state as a parameter to a child component, because that basically says the parent gives full control of its state to a child. So you no longer know how your state changes if you pass that to a child. But if you pass a function like this, you always know how your state will change because you know all the possibilities. If you have 3 or 4 places where you are updating this set part, you always know directly in the parent how that state changes. Otherwise, if you send it as a param, you have no guarantee that somewhere deep down in a button, someone decides to set this to null or to -1. So yeah, keep that in mind. Yes, it's true that new part can be a negative number, but you can enforce it here, like new part cannot be less than 1, right? And you can throw a new error here and so on, right? So don't send set states as parameters. Send functions that call set state for you, because that way you have control over your state and it's a little bit more predictable. Let's see if it worked. And of course it worked. Now, let's see if I save my name, submit, go to past experiences, refresh. Yeah, so I can navigate now between the two. All right. How do we advance from part one to part two and so on? Well, I would have two options here. I could have some sort of use effect, and based on form values that change, I would say, oh, let me reset my state and so on. That's sort of a valid point, but we actually saw in a previous video that we have a better option, and that's using imperative handle. So I can use imperative handle here, and I can allow the parent to decide programmatically how to change my state, how to set, for example, this part. So I could say not submit, but set current part, and I could just set it here like so. So I am giving access to a parent that has a reference to this component to make a modification of the selected part or whatever you want to call it. Now I need to wrap this into a forward ref like so, and I'll get an error saying, hey, you need to name this properly. This is coming from my ESLint config. This is going to be a forwarded application from wrapper, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I think ref was the second parameter or the first one. I think it was the second one, right? We can do it like that. And we also need a API, so or a ref. Okay, that's fine. Set current part. Very good job, autocomplete AI again. This is gonna be of that type. No, this is gonna be. I think we need to pass it. I think we need to pass it here, so it's gonna be that, and then this, right? Yeah, there we go. Now we should be able to export this reference and use ref in the parent. So I should be able to have a const multi-form ref here, use ref, not reducer, use ref of this, like so. And here we have ref, like so. So now when we save the first part of the form after we set the data, I'm really amazed. So I haven't had autocomplete GitHub Copilot, sorry, autocomplete for me before, but I am amazed by how smart it is. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to advance to the next part using the ref handler, and it did just that. So that's pretty neat. Basically here, if I complete the first part of the form, I submit. When the submit finishes, I should jump to past experiences, and I do. And now I'm back here, and I go back. So I have both this two working and the submission. Wow, that was actually surprising. What do you think? Do you agree that this is quite impressive from an AI that just figures out what the next word should be to figure out that I was actually trying to advance to the next part here? I think it's really great, and I get a lot less tired now when I work with Copilot. Anyhow, we are ready to switch tabs. We can submit again, we can go back, we can go forward. We could theoretically log and prevent the access to past experience before we finish basic details. Let's also do that, and then we're gonna be like really done with the first part and the navigation, and then we tackle the field array and some components that we built in the previous videos. I think I'm gonna use the date picker from a previous video that I'm gonna, I'm doing that thing with the finger, and there should be something that you can click on if you want to see how we're building a date picker in the previous video. Yeah, so first, let's properly initialize the multipart form, because right now, even though I have details for the basic details, I'm not switching to past experience. So let's do that first, and then see how we might prevent clicking on past experience if we don't have the basic details, because they're quite related. So first things first, I think we need to figure out what the current state is, the initial state, sorry, not the current state, when we have the first render of this component. We have form values. So basically, if form values exist, then we're gonna be on number 2. Otherwise, we're gonna be on number 1. So we are probably going to have to write something like this. So form 1, oh my bad, like that. Form 1 exists, but this is actually something that we only care about when the form values change, and they don't change that often. So we can have a memo, maybe a last valid form part, use memo. I don't know if we really need memo, but I'm kind of making a conscious choice, and I want to be mindful that this doesn't have to be recalculated every single time I change the set part. So that's the thing I'm trying to define here, to encode here as my intent. And now I will initialize our state with this last valid form part, because let's imagine we have 3 or 4 or something like that, not just 2. We always need to know which is the last part that is valid. So this code right here on line 23 probably becomes a little bit larger based on how many form parts we have, or maybe we have, like I said before, maybe each form has is valid or needs attention boolean, and even if you have 3 or 4 forms that have been submitted so far, 4 parts, if the first one needs attention, then this code should decide that the last valid tab should be the one that is the first one that needs the attentions, or something like that. And we can pass this, I think, here, like so. Of course, we have to implement the number like so, and we can add a disabled we can add a disabled style, or we can prevent the click if we are on a too advanced tab than the last one. So if last form part is less than 2, actually, if it is less than 2, I'm just gonna return. Don't do the submission for now. Props. What am I not doing properly? I don't like this. I usually prefer to have something like so. That way, I don't have to spread everything initially, and I can just reference some props like that. Okay, let's see if it works. So I refresh the page and I keep clicking. So I keep clicking now past experience and nothing happens. If I submit my name, I refresh the page, I am on page 1, on page 2, and I can swap between the two. Let's also ask chat for a disabled tab. How would the class names of a disabled tab look like? Let's see how that looks like. Okay. Part. So disabled would be this. Now I know the first one will never be disabled, so I'll just copy over this conditional right here. It's the same as the one here. Okay, let's do that. Boom, like so. Of course, folks, yes, you're supposed to have a usable button. This is boilerplate, that's repeated code. This should be extracted, so on and so forth. But we're not building a design system here. We're just trying to figure out if our multi-part forms work, right? So let's see, refresh, perfect. I'm not allowed to click it. I press, I submit, and now I'm able to navigate between the two. Awesome, awesome. So we're basically ready to start working on the second part of this experience, which is the field array inside the multi-part form using components that we built previously. So let's jump right into that. So let's go ahead and add a field array for the role name, company, start date, end date, and so on. So make all this a field array. So we could probably have something like fields, not use a super descriptive name, and this is going to be use fields array. Oh, we need to actually import it. Yeah, like so. Good. And we're going to say past experience, like roles. Role sounds better actually. So let's use roles and get rid of that input. And yeah, we should start defining a schema. So rather than asking the AI, let's do that ourselves this time. So we're going to have a schema from Zod. Actually, let's go here and copy those two. All right. We're going to have the Zod resolver here. Yes. And we're not going to have all this. We're going to have a role field. So let's get rid of everything. Role is an array of objects. Yes, that's correct. Oh, well, isn't GitHub Copilot useful here? So name is going to be role name, company name. Yeah, let's see. Please provide a name. Okay, company name. Okay, so I know I said we're not going to use the AI. I'm not using ChatGPT, so technically that's what I was trying to avoid. Non-empty, non-empty, non-empty. Yes, it's not going to be a string. We'll see what we're going to use for that. And currently working here is going to be a boolean, and we'll leave everything optional, and we need to close the array. All right. Let's also get the type. Yes, like so. Good. And pass it in here like so. And now why isn't roles working? So am I forgetting something about use field array maybe? Oh, yes. We need to have an object here, and we need that control entity from React form. So the same object that we need to send to control components needs to go to the field array. Then we have, I think, the name roles. Now things are working fine. But I think that's not all we have to do, right? Let's just console log and see what we get here with those fields first. So fields, I think, should be empty by default, even though we're saying, hey, you know, we're going to use an array of objects, and this is going to be the validation for that, and so on and so forth. Because there's no item in the fields, it's just going to be an empty array. So let me refresh that. Go here, yes. Default value, select, yeah, we know about that. Okay, so fields has a couple of options. So this is how we append and so on. And then we have the actual fields object. So sorry about that, folks. So it's going to be maybe fields, and we're just going to append this time. So we see we have an empty array. Now, it's probably not the best idea to have an empty array by default. I'd rather have an invalid initial first field in the field array, so we actually render this whole thing without doing something hacky or around the field array. And in order to do that, we could use the default values here and say, hey, you know, the roles are at least one, like so, even though I think we're going to have some validation errors pretty soon if we remove any of the optionals. So if I say this is a non-empty, oh no, it works. Huh. Okay. I guess this qualifies as a valid role name. Why is that? Where do we have optional? When we have optional there, that's super odd. Maybe there's been an update since the last time I did this, because I remember having some sort of errors with technically sending in an invalid role, because the role should have a role name, company name, blah blah blah. This one has none, and it still works. So now, if I refresh the page, yes, we do get one field array, and it has an ID. By the looks of it, a UUID v4. All right. Which means we can start mapping it to what? I think this whole, oh, look at that. Copilot says it should be role name, and that's it, and an input, not the whole thing. So we actually want the whole thing all the way to currently working here. So this, this, and this, boom. Oh, and apparently that one as well. So let's return everything that's here in a fragment like so. All right. And we're gonna get the field items, let's say, or field sections, field sections. Yeah. And the field section would just drop here like so. I think we're gonna split this into another component by the end of this implementation. Yeah. Boom. Okay, so we're still rendering. Yes, we should probably have a key. We already know that we have an ID here. So I'm gonna say field. I'm gonna take the ID out and oh, okay. So I guess I'll add a div here with the key ID like so instead of a fragment. So we get away with that. We no longer see the second error, the iteration error. So now if I want to add another position or another chunk of this content, I need to bind the append to add another position. So we had that append function here. On click on this button, we're going to have append like so. Oh, and now it's complaining, of course. So I knew there was something with TypeScript and appending content like so. So I guess we could start adding just empty things like so. That would allow us to initialize without type errors, even though I think append should just allow us to have another set of fields without having to specify valid data. I mean, we want to add more data, so we don't have it, so therefore it shouldn't be mandatory to provide valid data. But anyway, we might as well copy this outside of the form, like default field array object or values or whatnot, and just spread it around. So here we could also spread values like so, and here as well. And that way we're hiding this small little inconsistency or like inconvenience from the JSX part at least. All right, let's see how it works. So now I should be able to add another section and another one and another one and so on and so forth, which is fine. That's what we wanted. Basically, now it's time to start linking each individual field to specific data from our form state. And in order to do that, we'll use both control and register in this form. I'm going to use register for the inputs because the text inputs. Yeah, the text inputs because yeah, you should be able to see that you use both. And for the date picker, I'll pick the entity date picker that we used previously. So let's see how this would look like. Damn, Copilot is spoiling the explanation or like showing you exactly the result. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. So basically we should be able to go to roles and then we have an ID. Actually, not the ID. This is going to be the index, the ID index. And then we're going to have role name. So we're writing the path to the field, the exact field that we want to write into. And since we have an array, one of the parts of the path is going to be the actual position in the array. Nothing too fancy so far. Works the same with control, more or less. We'll see in a moment how. So I'll do company name here. And I think I'll let Copilot autocomplete this for me for the start date. Yeah. And for the end date as well. Good. Cool. Oh, and of course, we'll have they're currently working here as well. Great. This means that we should be able to press submit now and see errors and values when we successfully submit. So let's say software dev, company, Google, and pick a date from today until tomorrow. Submit. Oh, okay. Guess we have some sort of error. Or are we not calling the validation, the on submit ready? No, we're doing that. So we are doing that. We probably have some errors. So let's see how our errors look like. So it's going to be form state and errors here. Let's take out the object of errors and look at it. So log this one, refresh, yes, submit. So we have roles. Please provide your company name. Please provide. Yes, I am providing. Here you go. Here you go. And here you go. Submit. Oh, no errors. I guess we're not logging anything, so it was working fine. So if we go into our job application form here on submit ready to, it's handled outside, so it's probably here, and we're not, oh, we're actually saving the data as well. So let's see if I refresh the page, I'm not getting the data out. Okay, so we're not passing the data to our we are passing our data to our MultiPart from wrapper. We're not passing the data from the wrapper into here. So I'll do that. So initial values, yes. Let's add an interface for that. I like to collocate the object, the component, and the interface for the props together. So initial values are going to be those values, yes. And now we'll have to take the type just like before and define our form values interface like that. And now we need to go onto the page and say, yeah, we know what we're talking about. This is how the form data looks like. So I'm trying to cast to a very specific type as early as possible. Ideally, the form data, when it gets set with type safe value. So I guess the best place to actually have this cast is immediately, is right there when it is created. So it's either null or this valid information, and then this one would be as, but since it's an any, we kind of get away with it. So yeah, the earlier we have the typecasting, the better. Or like the type validation, not necessarily casting. Yeah, let's clean up this file a little bit. No, not like that. Just, yeah, okay. So let's see if we're getting data now. I'm completing the first one, and if we get data onto the second one, we can look at field arrays and then how we conditionally render and change the end date and the checkbox for currently working here. So we don't get any errors. And if we refresh the page, we are getting the form data. We have the roles, we have the information. We're not passing it to the initial values though. So now we know we need this default object if we don't have values or we don't have any roles. But if we do have initial values, I think we need to use the initial values roles. So basically, if initial values exist, and let's actually do that. And I'm going to take the initial values out of the props because I'm going to use them in the ternary operator here. So if the initial values exist and the initial values roles length are greater than 0, then we can use the initial value roles. Otherwise, we're going to have the default array. So that way, even if we have some sort of invalid or inconsistent initial values that have no roles, we don't end up in the situation where we don't render even the first initial empty role that users can fill in. We always render something. Okay, that's great. I think, yeah, that should be fine. And let's see if it worked. Refresh, first name, yeah, the full name, software dev, yeah, okay, bam, bam, submit, refresh, and we have the data. Great. So we are working with field arrays. We don't have errors. I'm gonna add errors for like the role name and see how that looks like, and then we'll see the component and the checkbox. So we've seen that errors have an ID. Let me clear that out and submit again. Roles of 0, so an ID, a position. So the errors now is not, the errors field is no longer an object. It has actually an array of objects, and then each object has the error, which works perfectly fine and maps exactly to our fields iteration here. So we can have, for example, field errors here like so, field dot roles, and if it exists, it's going to be that. And now we can have a ternary operator like, oh yeah, there we go. So if field errors role name exists, so fields of 0 or 1 or so on, or error fields of 1 and so on, if it has the error role name, we're going to print the message. Great. And I think I can do the same for the rest. Since it's super easy, why not do it? Come on. Field errors. There we go. Anyway, I'll add the errors for the first two fields and I'll leave the rest out because we will use our custom validation, custom implementation for date pickers, which is on the other page. So those two will be Andy date pickers. So I think they have their own validation message. So if I submit now, please provide a role name, and it gets focused. Great. Cool. And now it focuses the start date. So that's exactly what we wanted. Cool. And we get the errors here. So now we're actually ready to add the date picker. So let's go ahead and do that. So I think this is the date picker that we used in a previous video, which was built as an independent uh, reusable component that should work with any React Hook form. I mentioned this before in this video. There should be like a link somewhere where you can click it and see how this is implemented if you want to go through that tutorial as well. I'll just copy this whole thing. I won't try to do anything too fancy with it, just copy paste it. Take note that we need those two dependencies and hopefully use it out of the box just like that. So yeah, let me copy over the imports as well. I'm gonna make a new folder, and this time I imagine the date picker will be used somewhere else. So I'm gonna say this is gonna be a form fields folder, and then it's gonna be React Hook form date picker, React Hook form date picker.tsx. Did I do it right? Yeah. Great. And I need to install Day.js and Ant.d in order for this to work. I'll also export this component. We don't need the state. Seems like that was left okay. And we don't use the form in this file. So Andy, really? It needs no, it doesn't. I thought Andy wasn't type safe already. Huh, that would have been weird. All right. So our control has to come as a prop, and as long as it's a prop, it seems we're not doing anything super fancy with the type. I'm not gonna do anything super fancy with the type, so I'll just leave it to Annie. There is a different tutorial where I make the control super type safe. Probably gonna link to it somewhere. Anyway, let's use this instead of the simple date picker that we have right now. Let's see if we can integrate it easily. So I'm not sure if I have a label. Let me look again. Yeah, so I don't have a label in the implementation, so I'll leave the label like so, and then just import the date picker field, pass in the control, and yet again, Copilot spoils the fun of explaining because you already see the result. Just like the register, in order for the control object to know where to write the data into, it needs the same type of path as the register call. It's just gonna allow us to call it programmatically. So here somewhere I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna call the onChange from the controller from React Hook form instead of having that happen magically under the hood with register. I'm not sure how the focusing will work, and I'm not sure what ID this will have. So I think if I'm clicking start date, we won't be able to focus the date picker field. So that's something that I just realized it's missing. And yeah, I did not think about that. This is going to be the end date. I'll leave the checkbox as is. Okay, let's see. Oh, nice. So we get the error messages, which is great. And yeah, there we have it. I bet you expected something more complicated, right? It seems that our component works all right, but as you can see, if I'm clicking start date and end date, the field will not focus or trigger or anything like that. So that's something that we would need to implement, I believe. Here, I think we would probably need the use imperative handle here in the field and complicate things a little bit. I'm not exactly sure, but if you do know how to focus the React and the date picker when clicking on a normal label like a Tailwind, not related to Ant.d labels, a label that we build ourselves, leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm actually curious. if there's an easy way to get this done. But yeah, if we have valid data here, so like so, we should be able to submit, but we don't have valid data because our date picker is saving numbers, the timestamp instead of this actual string. So what I would like to do is modify the schema because I really like timestamps, at least for the start and end date. I don't know if we need uh, to modify the date picker just to get string dates instead of numbers. So I'll just leave it as a number for now, and I think we're gonna be fine. Minimum 0, sure, why not? I guess, and be done with it. Let's refresh. Yes, boom, submit. We want a number, receive the string. Yes, because we are initializing the field arrays with invalid data, so this probably needs to be something else. So let's see what the non-renderable value, or what was that, like how can we render a date picker without any values. So as long as we send a falsy value, I think we're good. So basically, if we send 0, I think we won't render anything based on this ternary operator. So the value of the date picker, if it's 0, it's going to be null, and null, I think, is going to be what tells entity to render an empty date picker. So our object, our default array object, I think needs to have 0 for those two. If I refresh, boom, submit, submit. And now because it's 0, because the validation is like so, it's not going to allow us to submit. I mean, it will allow us to submit. It's not going to show us an error. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's see. What? Come on. Submit. Yeah, and we can change this message to be something else, but I won't. I'll just add a message here. Normally we would probably refine this and make sure that we have a valid date there. We will change the end date. Please provide in a moment when we have this currently working here Boolean set. So please provide a specific date. Yeah. Okay. Great. Cool. So we're almost ready with the second part of the form as well. How do we change the validation of the schema now? So this is one of the last points that I want to make in this video. If we have this currently working here check on, how do we hide the end date, and how do we make sure that if we were to submit, if we hide this input, we no longer have the error. So how do we prevent this error from happening? So let's first address the null error, because we're getting that please provide a value which is not null. That's something that I think we need to change, because here when we make the change of the date, when we clear the date picker, it might send something that's undefined or null, and we're sending that null forward into our reactive form state. And we know that we don't have support for null. We're sending -1 as the invalid value. So maybe I should probably make this -1 or a 0. No, we said it's 0, but let's actually make it -1, because 0 is also falsy and so on. So we kind of track it a little bit easier. So I'm going to make this -1, and let me close a few of those so we don't get distracted. Okay, I'm gonna make these two -1 as well. So -1 is the number that needs to be supported. So that needs to be supported, accepted, and also represent the null value. We're gonna work with -1s, which means if we don't have a value, we're gonna say null. But now, if the value is actually -1 or non-existent, it will be translated into an empty date picker value. So basically, if our field value is actually greater than 0 and it exists, so let's make sure we have that check as well, we show the date, otherwise we don't show anything. So maybe there's no field value for some reason, that's fine. If there is a field value and it's not it's greater than 0, so it can be -1. It can also not be 0 because they start with a very large number. It should be fine. So let's save this, see if it works. I'm going to submit again. Expected number, received null. Why? And now we're able to submit, but the start date is still invalid. So let's try to force the start date to show validation error and then end date to not show it, because then we're going to be able to address it based on the value of the check, the currently working here checkbox. So how do we do that? Well, we know our initial value is -1, so we could say, if the value is -1, we're actually not okay. It shouldn't be an accepted value for start date. So we could just refine this value, and if it is less than 0, maybe less than or equal to 0, we can say no, otherwise it's true. And then we don't need the if statement, we actually just need to return this, like so. And maybe add a message if it allows us. Yes, please provide the valid start date. Let's see what we get. All right, submit, still nothing. Please provide the valid date. The check needs to be inversed, so if it's greater than 0, we should be fine. So submit. Now let's get to the second part. Yes, okay, submit. Please provide a valid date, but end date no longer complains. So we're close, we're getting there. So now let's see if we can make a refinement for the entire object. And we're gonna use super refine because we're gonna set a specific error. So super refine gets all the values of the form and a context, and this context will allow us to set errors on specific fields or things like that. So if we have currently working here, we probably don't need to do anything. So we will return something that is very Zod specific, which is Zod never. So we're going to be z.never. This basically means don't change anything, like just let's move along. Let's not break anything, which means our end date remains optional. We don't use it, we ignore it, we don't have anything to do with it, and so on. But if the currently working here is not set, we need to make sure that our end date is actually a good number. So we know that we only set value end date, so the end date to -1 when we initialize and we don't have valid data, or when we clear the data. So notice we are actually sending -1 when the date picker changes. So basically when we clear the date picker, we also get -1. So if we're in this falsy invalid state, we can do something like context add issue, and again something super specific to Zod. We're creating a custom error where actually with the message please provide a valid end date, and we also have a path. It's not context path, it's actually going to be end date. And notice that we're in an array. So we're saying end date for this object, which is an array, which is in another object. And we just worry about the path of our localized object that we're super refining onto. So basically, if this checkbox is true, don't validate anything extra, leave the end date as it is. If it's not true, then we need to make sure that end date is actually a valid value. So I think this is enough. Let's see if it works. If not, we will refine it a little bit more. So if I press submit now, I get a please provide a valid end date. But if I were to check this and submit, I no longer have that validation error. Right, so super refine in action, setting an error on this specific field. This seems to be working as intended, which means we should be able to submit a form like this. And if I refresh, oh, I lost the data. Let's go here. So I lost the data on the first one, but I had data on the second one, and therefore here we have it. It is persisted. If I refresh the page, I have that. If I submit like this without the kernel working here, and date is locked, is asking for a valid date. And if we submit and refresh, we get a persisted date fields. Now, of course, we could also do validation between these two. The start date must be less than end date. You probably see where you need to add it. So no one's stopping us from adding multiple super refines and checking if the end date and the start date are correct. So let's actually see if I can add a value start date is greater than value end date. Please provide a valid end date. I'm not actually. Let's add a different end date must be after start date. Let's see if this works. Like so. So I'll pick a start date that is very different and in the future for the end date. And now end date must be after start date. Please provide a valid end date. If I go and provide something that's super early, it won't work. If I have currently working here, ooh, okay, so if currently working here is set, it seems that the super refine, it seems that the super refine is still running because we have not returned. So can I return the never and then prevent this validation from happening? Or maybe I actually need to group those together. So let me group those together, which is not really great because if we have a super complex schema, we're gonna clog together a lot of small checks like this. And even though they're quite independent, you see that this check needs to run after the first one. And while we see those 3 checks on the screen, at some point there's gonna be like 20 of them, and you will forget which one influences which. So probably not the best idea to group them together. It would be great if we had a way forward where we could split this into smaller chunks and they would chain together or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's possible. But in the interest of time, I think I'll wrap it up pretty soon. Let's see if it works now. So we're able to submit even though the end date is super invalid. Of course, we won't see this because when we check the currently working here, we will hide or lock the end date. So let's actually do that. And I think we're done for this exploration. First, let's make sure that the second array also works. The second item in the array also works. Let's see, Microsoft, something like that. End date like so, start date here, it's valid, submit, seems to be working. Okay, refresh the page really quick. Provide the name, data for the past experience should be there, it is. Okay, so we're good on this front as well, using multiple instances of the date pickers and checkboxes and so on. how do we hide this end date now? So how do we disable it or clear it or something like that? So I think I want to clear it, like not clear it, like just not render it, because you might end up in the situation where users don't have this check. They want to pick a date, they notice the checkbox is there, they click it, and then you have to do all the sorts of fancy stuff, probably with imperative handle or something like that, to clear the data from the end date and so on. So hiding it seems to be the easiest option. Now we have access to all the values by calling watch. So we can have the watch function imported from use form, and inside here we can say checkbox field checkbox value, or like currently working here value is watch. And I think I'm going to disable GitHub Copilot because it seems to do all the work for me. So yes, we want to get the same information as the the name that we pass to the register or the control name. So if we watch this long value, we get back whatever was inside the Yahoo form state for that particular field array item. And I think that's pretty much it. We can go to the end date and just render it like so. So if it exists, don't show this end date drop down at all. Don't show the label, don't show anything. And there we have it. It actually works. So I can submit like this. I can refresh. It correctly saves the data. Of course, now I can have two currently working here. Ooh, we have a bug, folks. Look at that. So we actually need to fix this. So yeah, I did change my hoodie. It's a different day actually, because I spent the rest 20 minutes of the video trying to fix this bug by implementing a completely different component instead of seeing what was right there. We have the same ID for every single checkbox and the same label pointing with the HTML4 attribute to the input that has this specific ID. And because we're kind of breaking the rules of HTML and having the same ID on multiple elements on the page, all the labels were pointing to the first one. So the bug is actually quite easy to fix. We just need to use the same, or like a different identifier for every input. If I just replace the ID and the HTML4 to use the same string as the one I use in the register, we should be good to go. So let's see if this works. All right, so I'm on the second page. I'm gonna add two new positions and I can change them individually. So let's see if this works. Let's do a complete check of the entire experience. I'm gonna use my name, my email address, maybe some fake address here, and we should be good to go. I press submit. We go to the second page. The second page has the role, software development, Google, yeah, whatever. Current position is this one, right? And the second one is again software developer, and we choose some dates. Of course, if we choose a date that's in the future, so it's after the end date, we shouldn't be able to submit. We can change that. So let's go ahead and do just that, and I can press submit. Now, of course, we could work on showing some sort of confirmation state after we press submit. We could also change the name here to be something else on the basic details, but I hope this is enough for you to understand the split of responsibility between the different layers of the architecture and to build whatever multi-form experience you have to build or you want to build. So having said that, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, give me a thumbs up, leave some comments. What do you think about it? I actually didn't edit it too much because it was super long. So I'm curious to know if this type of format works better for you, or if you prefer uh, other types of content, like more summarized, more condensed versions of this. Anyway, just let me know in the comment section below. And having said that, have a good day, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye.